James Carter stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse office on the 42nd floor of Pinnacle Innovations. The tech empire he'd built from a single idea scribbled on a napkin 16 years ago. At 48, James was the picture of success. Tailored suit, salt and pepper hair, and a net worth that could buy a small island. Pinnacle, a leader in artificial intelligence software, had just closed a $200 million deal with a global retailer, and the board was already planning a celebratory gala. Yet, as James gazed out at the city's twinkling lights, a hollow ache gnawed at his chest. Something was missing. He turned from the window, his polished loafers silent on a hardwood floor, and sank into his leather chair. The office was a shrine to his achievements. Framed awards, a photo of him shaking hands with a senator, a Forbes cover from 2023 proclaiming him the IA visionary. But tonight, those trophies felt like anchors, dragging him deeper into a question he couldn't answer. What's the point of all this? James hadn't always been this way. In his 20s, he dreamed of building a company that changed lives, not just bank accounts. He remembered late nights in a cramped apartment, coding with his college roommate, fueled by cheap coffee and a belief that technology could unite people. Somewhere along the way, that vision had been buried under quarterly reports, shareholder demands, and a relentless pursuit of growth. Pinnacle was a titan now, employing 1,200 people across 3 continents, but James felt more disconnected than ever. He barely knew the names of his employees, let alone their stories. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. An email, marked anonymous, sat in his inbox. The subject line was blunt. "Your company is broken." James frowned, hesitating before clicking. The message was short but sharp. "Mr. Carter, you think Pinnacle is a success, but you're blind to what's happening on the ground. People are miserable. The culture is toxic backstabbing, pressure, no respect. You're losing good people, and you don't even know it. Wake up before it's too late." The words hit like a slap. James leaned back, his pulse quickening. He'd heard whispers of discontent turnover rates creeping up, complaints filtered through HR, but this was different. Raw, personal. He reread the email, searching for clues about the sender. Was it a disgruntled manager? A low-level coder? The anonymity made it impossible to tell, but the accusation lingered. "You're blind." For the next hour, James paced his office, the city lights blurring outside. He thought of his father, a car mechanic who'd worked 12-hour days in a dusty garage, always with a smile for his customers. "Money buys cars, Jimmy," he'd said once, wiping grease from his hands. "But only respect buys loyalty." His father had died a decade ago, poor but loved. James, rich beyond measure, hadn't felt that kind of love in years, not from his employees, not from the ex-wife who'd left him, not even from himself. By midnight, an idea took root, reckless, but irresistible. What if he could see Pinnacle through the eyes of his employees? Not as the untouchable CEO, but as one of them? The thought sent a thrill through him, like the spark of his old entrepreneurial days. He grabbed his phone and texted his old friend. "Rachel Evans, Pinnacle's head of HR. Need a favor. No questions. Can you set me up as a new hire in IT?" Fake name. "No one knows it's me." Rachel's reply came instantly. "You're insane. Call me tomorrow. The next morning. Over a secure call." James laid out his plan. He'd go undercover as Sam Wilson, a junior IT support specialist, for 1 week. No corner office, no VIP treatment, just a cubicle, a lanyard, and a chance to uncover the truth. Rachel protested, citing logistics and risks, but James was adamant. "I need to know what's really going on, Rach. Not what the board tells me, not what you filter. The raw truth." Reluctantly, she agreed, swearing to keep his secret. Preparations began in earnest. James traded his bespoke suits for a $30 polo from Target and a pair of scuffed sneakers. He ditched his Rolex for a cheap digital watch and swapped his slick back hair for a messy cut, complete with drugstore glasses to dull his recognizable features. Standing in front of his bathroom mirror, he barely recognized himself. Sam Wilson stared back, a nobody, unremarkable, invisible. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. To sell the ruse, Rachel crafted a backstory. Sam Wilson, 42, a recent transplant from Cleveland with a decade of IT experience at small firms. His resume was deliberately average, designed to blend in. James memorized it, practicing a slouch, and a softer voice to shed his CEO aura. He couldn't afford slip-ups. One wrong move, a familiar gesture, a mention of boardroom gossip, could blow his cover dot as the first day approached. Doubt crept in. What if he was recognized? What if the email was a prank and he was walking into a trap? His heart raced as he imagined Claire Thompson, the ambitious project manager he'd promoted last year, staring at him with suspicion. Or worse, what if he found nothing worth fixing? The anonymous email replayed in his mind, its challenge now. A dare. Wake up. The night before his undercover mission, James sat on his balcony, a glass of bourbon untouched in his hand. Chicago's skyline stretched before him, a mosaic of ambition and anonymity. He thought of his father again, of the garage where customers lingered just to chat. Pinnacle was his legacy, but what kind of legacy was it? A machine that churned out profits while chewing up its people? Or something worth saving? James set the glass down and stood, resolve hardening. Tomorrow, he'd walk into Pinnacle, not as James Carter, but as Sam Wilson. He'd face the cubicles, the coffee breaks, the unspoken hierarchies. He'd find the truth, no matter how ugly. And maybe, just maybe, he'd find the piece of himself he'd lost along the way. The elevator doors slid open, and James Carter, now Sam Wilson, stepped into the buzzing hive of Pinnacle Innovations' 15th floor. It was 7:58 a.m., and the air crackled with the frenetic energy of a Monday morning in Chicago's tech scene. Gone was the penthouse solitude of his CEO life. Here, fluorescent lights hummed overhead, keyboards clacked in a staccato rhythm, and the faint aroma of burnt coffee hung like a fog. Sam clutched a cheap backpack, his palms sweaty beneath the weight of his disguise. He was no longer the man who signed multi-million-dollar deals. Today, he was just another IT guy, invisible in a sea of cubicles. And that invisibility, he was about to learn, came with a sting. Sam's first task was to report to the IT department, tucked in a corner of the open-plan office. He navigated past glass-walled meeting rooms and clusters of employees hunched over laptops, their faces lit by screens. No one looked up. No one said hello. He felt like a ghost, drifting through a world that didn't see him. At the IT desk, a gruff man in his late 30s glanced up from a tangle of cables. "You Wilson?" he asked, barely making eye contact. Sam nodded. "I'm Mark Reynolds." "Sit there." Mark jerked his thumb toward a cramped cubicle with a flickering monitor and a chair missing one wheel. "Fix whatever tickets come in. Don't screw up." Sam settled in, his heart pounding. He'd spent years overseeing Pinnacle's strategy, but now he was wrestling with a clunky ticketing system and a keyboard sticky with someone's lunch. His first ticket, a printer jam for Claire Thompson, the project manager he promoted last year for a ruthless efficiency. Sam grabbed a screwdriver and headed to her team's pod, a sleek setup with whiteboard scribbled in frantic marker. Claire, her blonde hair pulled into a tight bun, didn't even glance at him as she barked orders into her headset. "Sam, right?" she said, finally noticing him. "Hurry up. We're on a deadline." Her tone was sharp, like she was addressing a malfunctioning machine, not a person. As Sam pried open the printer, he stole glances at Claire's team. Sarah Nguyen, a young coder with nervous energy, was scribbling notes while Claire loomed over her. "This code is garbage, Sarah," Claire snapped. "Fix it by noon or you're out of the sprint." Sarah's shoulders slumped, but she nodded, her fingers trembling on her laptop. Sam felt a pang of guilt. He'd approved Claire's promotion, impressed by her ability to hit KPIs. Had he overlooked her abrasiveness? He cleared the paper jam, mumbled, "It's fixed," and retreated. Claire's dismissive "thanks" trailing after him like an afterthought back at his cubicle. Sam's inbox pinged with more tickets. A crashed laptop, a VPN glitch, a forgotten password. Each task took him deeper into the office, and with every step, he saw the cracks in Pinnacle's facade. Employees darted past him without a glance, their conversations clipped and tense. In the break room, two developers whispered about rumored layoffs, their voices dropping when Sam entered. "They're cutting costs again," one muttered. Even after that big deal, Sam's stomach twisted. He knew about the $200 million contract. Hell, he'd signed it. But layoffs? That wasn't on his radar. Or was it? Had the board slipped? It passed him? By noon, Sam's head throbbed from the fluorescent glare and the weight of his observations. He grabbed a stale sandwich from the cafeteria and slumped at a table, alone. Across the room, Mark Reynolds griped to another IT guy about Claire's latest demands. "She thinks she runs this place," Mark said, tossing a chip into his mouth. "Bet she's gunning for Sarah next." Kid doesn't stand a chance. Sam's grip tightened on his sandwich. Sarah, with her earnest determination, reminded him of himself at 25, full of ideas and grit. Was Pinnacle crushing her spirit? Just. Then, a soft voice broke through his thoughts. "Rough first day, Sam." He looked up to see an older man, maybe 60, with silver hair and a lean frame pushing a cleaning cart. His navy uniform was faded, but his eyes crinkled with warmth. "I'm Henry Brooks," he said, extending a calloused hand. "Been keeping this place spotless for 22 years. Sam shook his hand, startled by the gesture. No one else had bothered to introduce themselves, let alone learn his name. "Yeah, it's a lot," Sam admitted, forcing a smile. Henry chuckled, wiping down a nearby table. "First days always are. You'll find your rhythm. Coffee helps." He nodded toward a thermos on his cart. "Made it myself? Want some?" Sam hesitated, then nodded. Henry poured a steaming cup, the aroma rich and grounding. "Thanks," Sam said, sipping it. The coffee was strong, better than the sludge in the break room. For a moment, he felt human again, not just a cog in Pinnacle's machine. "You always this nice to newbies?" he asked, half joking. Henry shrugged, his mop gliding across the floor. "Folks here are too busy to notice each other. Figure someone's gotta break the ice." His words were simple, but they hit Sam hard. In one morning, Henry had shown more kindness than anyone else in the building. As the day wore on, Sam's encounters with Henry became the only bright spots. Henry greeted him in the hallway with a nod and a "hang in there, Sam." When Sam struggled with a server reboot, Henry lingered nearby, humming an old jazz tune, his presence oddly calming. Sam watched him work, emptying trash cans, polishing glass doors, moving with quiet dignity. Henry knew every corner of the building, from the executive suites to the basement storage. He knew the names of employees who ignored him, the quirks of the ancient HVAC system, even the best spot to catch the sunset from the roof. Yet no one seemed to notice him, except to complain about a spill or a smudge. That afternoon, Sam overheard a conversation that made his blood run cold. He was resetting a router in a meeting room when Claire's voice drifted through the glass wall. She was on a call, her tone low but venomous. "Sarah's a liability," she said. "If we miss this deadline, I'm pinning it on her. Get HR ready to document it. Sam froze, his screwdriver hovering midair. Claire was plotting to fire Sarah, a new hire who'd barely had time to prove herself. He wanted to barge in, to call her out, but Sam Wilson had no power. James Carter did, but revealing himself now would unravel everything. He clenched his jaw and finished the job, his mind racing. By 6 p.m., the office had thinned out, leaving only the hum of computers and the occasional clack of a keyboard. Sam stayed late, ostensibly to catch up on tickets, but really to observe. He wandered the floor, noting the empty energy drink cans, the sticky notes scrawled with deadlines, the tension etched into every surface. In the supply closet, he found Henry restocking paper towels, his cart neatly organized. "Long day?" Henry asked, glancing up. Sam nodded, leaning against the doorframe. "How do you do it, Henry? All this chaos. Doesn't it get to you?" Henry paused, his hands still on a stack of towels. "Chaos is just noise," he said, his voice steady. "I focus on what I can control. Clean floors, a kind word, maybe a good cup of coffee." He smiled faintly. "Small things add up, Sam. You'll see." Sam stared at him, struck by the simplicity of his words. Henry wasn't climbing the corporate ladder or chasing bonuses, yet he seemed more grounded than anyone Sam had met in years. For the first time all day, Sam felt a flicker of hope. As he left the building that night, Sam glanced back at the Pinnacle logo glowing above the entrance. He'd come seeking the truth, and he'd found it in fragments. Claire's ruthlessness, Sarah's vulnerability, Mark's cynicism, and Henry's quiet strength. The anonymous email echoed in his mind. "Your company is broken." But it wasn't just broken, it was fractured, held together by fear and ambition. Except for Henry, who somehow made it bearable. Sam pulled his coat tighter against the Chicago wind, his cheap sneakers scuffing the pavement. Tomorrow he'd return as Sam Wilson, diving deeper into the shadows of Pinnacle. He didn't know what he'd find, but one thing was clear. Henry Brooks, the man with the mop and the thermos, was no ordinary janitor. And Sam was determined to learn why. The second day at Pinnacle Innovations dawned gray and heavy, the Chicago sky pressing against the office windows like a warning. Sam Wilson James Carter, in disguise, slipped into his cubicle, the wobbly chair creaking under his weight. His first day as an undercover IT support specialist had left him rattled, his notebook already filling with observations. Claire Thompson's sharp tongue, Sarah Nguyen's quiet resilience, Mark Reynolds' bitter complaints, and above all, Henry Brooks' unexpected kindness. Sam had come to uncover the truth behind the anonymous email that called his company broken. But the truth was proving messier than he'd imagined. Today, he vowed to dig deeper, even as the weight of his double life pressed harder. The morning passed in a blur of tickets, a frozen spreadsheet for a marketing analyst, a malware scare on a designer's laptop, a coffee spill that fried a keyboard. Each task pulled Sam through Pinnacle's sprawling floor, where the hum of productivity masked a current of unease. Employees typed furiously, their screens reflecting deadlines and dashboards. Sticky notes fluttered on monitors, scrawled with reminders like Q2KP is due and don't miss sprint. The open plan office, with its sleek furniture and motivational posters, innovate or stagnate, felt like a pressure cooker, and Sam was starting to feel the heat. At 10 a.m., he overheard a tense exchange near the water cooler. Sarah, the young coder, was pleading with Claire, her voice low but desperate. "I've been working on the bug fixes all night, Claire. I just need until tomorrow." Claire's response was ice cold. "Tomorrow?" "The client's breathing down my neck, Sarah. If you can't handle it, I'll find someone who can." Sarah's face crumpled, but she nodded and hurried back to her desk. Sam, resetting a nearby router, clenched his fists. As James Carter, he could have intervened. demanded Claire ease up. As Sam Wilson, he was powerless, a bystander to his own company's cruelty. The incident lingered as Sam returned to his cubicle, where Mark Reynolds was slouched, scrolling through a news site. Instead of working, "Claire's at it again," Mark muttered, not looking up. "She's gunning for Sarah, but she's got HR on speed dial." Sam leaned in, keeping his tone casual. "Why doesn't anyone push back?" Mark snorted. "Push back? Claire's untouchable. She's got the execs eating out of her hand. And us? We're just cogs." The word cogs hit Sam like a punch. Was that how his employees saw themselves? Disposable parts in his machine? By noon, Sam needed a break from the office's suffocating air. He grabbed his sandwich and headed outside to a concrete bench near the entrance, where he'd seen Henry Brooks eating the day before. The janitor was there, as expected, his thermos of coffee beside him and a dog-eared copy of Walden open on his lap. Henry looked up, his silver hair catching the faint sunlight. "Sam, didn't expect company," he said, his smile warm. "Care to join an old man for lunch?" Sam hesitated, then sat, the bench cold against his jeans. "Only if you've got more of that coffee," he quipped. Henry poured him a cup, and for a moment, they ate in companionable silence, the city's hum a distant backdrop. Sam studied Henry, intrigued by his calm. The janitor's hands were rough from years of work, his uniform patched at the elbows. Yet he carried himself with a quiet dignity that seemed out of place in Pinnacle's cutthroat world. "You read a lot?" Sam asked, nodding at the book. Henry chuckled. "When I can. Thoreau's got a way of cutting through the noise. Says you don't need much to live well, just the right perspective." Sam sipped his coffee, the words sinking in. Perspective. He'd spent years chasing more deals, more growth, more power. What had it cost him? Their conversation drifted to lighter topics. Baseball. Henry was a die-hard Cubs fan. Old movies. He loved Casablanca and Chicago's brutal winters. Sam found himself relaxing, the knot in his chest loosening. For the first time in years, he wasn't performing, no boardroom charisma, no calculated charm. With Henry, he could just be. But curiosity tugged at him. "Henry," he said, setting down his sandwich, "you've been here 22 years. Why stay? Don't you ever want more?" Henry's eyes flickered, not with offense, but with thought. He looked out at the skyline, his voice soft. "More's a tricky word, Sam. I had chances to climb office jobs, management. But I saw what it did to people. Chasing titles, losing themselves. Me, I've got my books, my routine, my peace. That's enough." The answer stunned Sam. Peace. When was the last time he'd felt that? As James Carter, his life was a treadmill of meetings and metrics, each victory hollower than the last. Henry's words echoed his father's old advice. Respect buys loyalty. But respect wasn't just about titles. It was about connection, something Henry seemed to understand instinctively. Sam wanted to ask more, but a group of employees spilled out of the building, their laughter jarring. Henry stood, brushing crumbs from his uniform. "Back to it," he said with a wink. "See you around, Sam." Back inside, the afternoon brought a new shock. While troubleshooting a network glitch, Sam stumbled across a leaked email in the IT system, buried in a shared drive. It was from the CFO to the board, marked confidential, and its subject line made his blood run cold. Q3. Cost reduction plan. He glanced around, ensuring Mark wasn't watching, and opened it. The email outlined a proposal to lay off 10% of the workforce, 120 people, despite Pinnacle's record profits. Streamlining operations is critical to maintain shareholder value, it read. Sam's hands shook. He delegated financial planning to the board, trusting their judgment. Had he been so detached that he'd missed this? Or worse, had he enabled it. The email listed high-risk departments, including IT and coding teams like Sarah's. Sam's mind flashed to her trembling hands, her plea to Claire. If layoffs hit, she'd be first on the chopping block. He copied the email to a hidden folder, his heart pounding. As James Carter, he could stop this call an emergency board meeting, demand answers. But as Sam Wilson, he was trapped, forced to watch his company unravel from the inside. The anonymous email's warning rang louder. You're losing good people, and you don't even know it. The rest of the day was a haze of guilt and observation. Sam watched Claire berate a designer for a minor error, her voice carrying across the floor. He saw Mark slip a USB drive into his pocket, his eyes darting suspiciously. Was he sabotaging a project? And he caught Sarah in the break room, her eyes red from crying, staring at a photo of her parents on her phone. Sam approached, offering a hesitant, "You okay?" Sarah forced a smile. "Just a lot of pressure. I don't want to let anyone down." Sam nodded, wishing he could tell her the truth, that he'd seen her potential, that she deserved better. Instead, he mumbled, "Keep going. You're doing great," and left, hating his own powerlessness. That evening, Sam stayed late, the office emptying until only the cleaning crew remained. He found Henry in the break room, polishing tables with rhythmic precision. The janitor's presence was a balm, a reminder that not everything at Pinnacle was broken. "You're here late," Henry said, glancing up. "Trouble sleeping?" Sam laughed, a tired sound. "Something like that. Just trying to figure this place out." Henry nodded, as if he understood more than Sam was saying. "It's a tough crowd," he admitted. "But there's good here, if you look for it. Like that kid, Sarah. She's got heart." Sam seized the opening. "You know everyone, don't you? What's your secret?" Henry set down his rag, his expression softening. "No secret. I just listen. People talk when they think no one's watching. Like Sarah, she told me once about her folks, how they worked double shifts to get her through college. Or Mark, always grumbling, but he's scared of losing his job. Been here too long to start over." Sam leaned forward, riveted. Henry's insight was sharper than any HR report he'd ever read. "And you?" Sam asked. "What's your story?" Henry's smile faded, his eyes distant. "Not much to tell. Had a wife, Ellen, till cancer took her 8 years ago. Daughter, Lisa, lives in Seattle now. We don't talk much. She's busy. Got her own life." He paused, folding his rag. "This job keeps me steady. Gives me purpose, even if it's just clean floors." Sam's throat tightened. Henry's loss mirrored his own isolation, though their lives couldn't be more different. He wanted to say something profound, but all he managed was, "You're good at finding purpose." Henry shrugged, picking up his rag. "Purpose finds you, Sam, if you're open to it." He resumed polishing, but his words lingered, a challenge to Sam's restless heart. As Sam left the office that night, he clutched his notebook, now thick with notes. Claire's schemes, Mark's disloyalty, Sarah's struggle, the looming layoffs. But it was Henry's story, his quiet strength, his ability to see people, that burned brightest. Sam didn't know how to fix Pinnacle yet, but he knew one thing. Henry Brooks was the key to understanding what his company could be. The air in Pinnacle Innovations' 15th floor office crackled with tension on Sam Wilson's 5th day undercover, as if the Chicago skyline outside had lent its storm clouds to the cubicles within. James Carter, disguised as the unassuming IT specialist, felt the weight of his double life more acutely than ever. His notebook brimmed with damning truths. Claire Thompson's plot to oust Sarah Nguyen, Mark Reynolds' suspicious USB drive, the leaked email revealing a 10% layoff plan, and amidst it all, Henry Brooks' quiet wisdom. Sam had come to uncover the rot in his company, But what he'd found was a fracture so deep it threatened to swallow Pinnacle whole. Today, that fracture would split wide open. The morning began with a deceptive calm. Sam tackled a backlog of IT tickets, resetting passwords, untangling server glitches while keeping one eye on the office dynamics. Sarah, her eyes shadowed from sleepless nights, typed furiously at her desk, racing to meet Claire's impossible deadline. Claire, ever the predator, circled her team's pod, her heels clicking like a metronome of doom. Mark, meanwhile, slouched at his cubicle, his gaze flickering between his screen and the USB drive he tucked into his pocket. Sam's stomach churned. Was Mark sabotaging a project to spite Claire? Or was he planning something worse? As James Carter, Sam could have demanded answers. As Sam Wilson, he could only watch, his powerlessness a bitter pill out by noon. The office's undercurrent of stress boiled over. Sam was in the break room, refilling his water bottle, when raised voices echoed from the coding team's pod. He stepped into the hallway, his pulse quickening. Claire stood over Sarah, her face a mask of fury, clutching a tablet. "This is unacceptable, Sarah," she shouted, loud enough for heads to turn. "Your bug fixes crashed the client demo. Do you have any idea what this costs us?" Sarah, pale and trembling, stammered, I tested everything, Claire. It wasn't my code. Someone." Claire cut her off. "Don't make excuses. You're done. Pack your things." The words landed like a grenade. Employees froze, their eyes darting between Sarah and Claire. Sarah's voice broke. "Claire, please. I've been working 16-hour days. I didn't." Claire leaned in, her voice low but venomous. "You're a liability, Sarah. HR's already got your file." Sam's blood ran cold. He remembered. The overheard call Claire's plan to pin her failures on Sarah. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a setup. He took a step forward, instinct urging him to intervene. But Mark's voice cut through the chaos. "Oh, come on, Claire," Mark sneered, standing from his cubicle. "You've been gunning for her since day one. Maybe check your own work for once." The room erupted. Claire rounded on Mark, her eyes blazing. "Stay out of this, Reynolds. You're no saint. Don't think I haven't noticed your little side projects." Mark laughed, a harsh sound. "Side projects? Like covering your ass when you miss deadlines?" Employees began to murmur, some nodding, others whispering. Sarah, caught in the crossfire, clutched her laptop, tears streaming down her face. The argument spiraled, accusations flying like shrapnel. Sam stood rooted, his heart pounding. This was the breaking point, the moment Pinnacle's toxic culture laid itself bare. He wanted to scream, to reveal himself as James Carter and shut it all down, but something held him back. Not yet. Then, a calm voice sliced through the din. "All right, folks, let's take a breath." Henry Brooks stepped into the pod, his mop leaning against his shoulder, his navy uniform a stark contrast to the chaos. His presence was unassuming, yet the room fell silent, as if his quiet authority demanded it. "We're all on the same team here," Henry said, his eyes moving from Claire to Mark to Sarah. "No need to tear each other down. Mistakes happen. Fix them together and move on." His words were simple, but they carried a weight that silenced the room. Claire's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. Mark slumped back into his chair, muttering. Sarah wiped her eyes, her shoulders relaxing slightly. Sam watched, awestruck. Henry, the janitor, had done what no manager could: diffused a powder keg with nothing but compassion and clarity. Employees began to disperse, the tension ebbing like a receding tide. Claire stormed off to a meeting room, slamming the door. Mark plugged in his headphones, his face dark. Sarah sat, staring at her screen, her hands still shaking. Henry caught Sam's eye and gave a small nod, as if to say, "It's handled." Sam's chest ached with admiration and shame. Here was a man with no title, no corner office, commanding respect through sheer humanity. And he, James Carter, had built a company where people like Henry were invisible. That evening, Sam sat alone in his cubicle, the office nearly empty. The argument replayed in his mind, each word an indictment of the culture he'd allowed to fester. Henry's intervention had saved the moment, but it couldn't erase the deeper rot. The layoffs looming in the leaked email, Claire's ruthless ambition, Mark's disloyalty, Sarah's despair. Sam's notebook lay open, its pages a catalog of failures, his failures. He'd come undercover to find the truth, but the truth was uglier than he'd feared. Pinnacle wasn't just broken. It was breaking its people. And he, James Carter, was complicit. He found Henry in the supply closet, restocking paper towels with the same steady rhythm Sam had come to admire. "You were incredible today," Sam said, leaning against the doorframe. "How do you do it? Step into a mess like that and just fix it?" Henry chuckled, folding a towel. "Not fixing, Sam. Just reminding folks they're human. People get lost in the heat of things. A little calm goes a long way." Sam shook his head, marveling. "You should be running this place." Henry's smile faded, his eyes thoughtful. "Nah, I'm where I'm meant to be. But you, Sam, you've got a fire in you. What are you going to do with it?" The question hit Sam like a jolt. He wanted to tell Henry everything, who he was, why he was here, the layoffs he'd discovered. But the words caught in his throat. Instead, he said, "I don't know yet, but I'm trying to figure it out." Henry nodded, as if he understood the weight behind the words. "When the time comes, you'll know what's right. Trust that." Sam left the closet, Henry's words echoing. Trust that. Could he trust himself to fix what he'd broken? By the sixth day, Sam knew he couldn't stay silent any longer. The argument, Henry's wisdom, the leaked email, it all pointed to one truth. Pinnacle needed a reckoning, and it started with him. He contacted Rachel Evans, the HR head, and arranged a company-wide meeting for the next morning. "No details," he told her. "Just get everyone there." Rachel's voice was wary. "James, what are you doing?" He didn't answer. He wasn't sure himself, not yet. The meeting room was packed, every chair filled, employees standing along the walls. Claire sat near the front, her arms crossed, her face a mask of suspicion. Sarah fidgeted, her eyes downcast. Mark leaned against a wall, his expression unreadable. Henry stood at the back, his cleaning car parked outside, watching with quiet curiosity. Sam took the podium, his heart thundering. He wore Sam Wilson's polo and glasses, but as he gripped the microphone, he felt James Carter stirring within. "You may not know me," he began, his voice steady despite the knot in his chest. "I've been here a week, working as Sam Wilson in IT, but that's not who I am." A murmur rippled through the room. He removed his glasses, straightened his posture, and let his true voice emerge. "I'm James Carter, your CEO." Gasps filled the air. Claire's jaw dropped. Sarah's eyes widened. Mark swore under his breath. Henry's face remained calm, but a faint smile tugged at his lips, as if he'd suspected something all along. "I've spent the last 6 days among you," James continued, his voice cracking with emotion. "Not as your boss, but as one of you. And what I've seen has broken my heart. I saw how we treat each other based on titles, roles, power. I saw fear, not teamwork. I saw good people pushed to the edge." He looked at Sarah, then Claire, then Mark. "I saw a company I built losing its soul." The room was silent, every eye on him. "But I also met someone who showed me what leadership really is. Someone who leads not with a title, but with heart." He turned to Henry, his voice trembling. "Henry Brooks, you've been here 22 years, cleaning our floors, pouring our coffee, seeing us when we didn't see you. You reminded me that true Leadership is about humanity, about kindness, respect, seeing the person, not the position. Thank you. Henry's eyes glistened, his hands clasped tightly. The room erupted in applause, tentative at first, then thunderous. Claire clapped. Slowly, her face unreadable. Sarah wiped away tears. Mark looked away, his shoulders tense. James raised a hand, quieting the crowd. I've learned more this week than in 16 years as CEO, and I promise you this, things will change. No layoffs. No more fear. We're going to rebuild Pinnacle together. The applause returned, louder, tinged with hope. James stepped down, his legs shaky, his chest light for the first time in years. He'd taken the first step. Now, the real work began. The morning after James Carter's bombshell revelation, Pinnacle Innovations buzzed with a new energy, like a city waking from a long, troubled sleep. The 15th floor office, once a pressure cooker of deadlines and distrust, hummed with cautious optimism. Employees whispered in break rooms, their voices tinged with disbelief and hope. James, no longer Sam Wilson, stood in his penthouse office, staring at the Chicago skyline. The weight of his disguise was gone, but a heavier burden remained, rebuilding a company he'd let fracture. His speech had been a spark. Now, he needed to fan it into a flame. And through it all, one man's quiet wisdom lingered in his mind. Henry Brooks, the janitor who'd shown him what leadership truly meant. James wasted no time. He called an emergency board meeting that afternoon. The sleek conference room starkly different from the cubicles he'd inhabited as Sam. The board, blindsided by his undercover stunt, bristled with questions. You risked our reputation, James, the CFO snapped, his tie askew. What if the press gets wind of this? James leaned forward, his voice firm. The real risk is losing our people. I saw it: fear, backstabbing, a culture that chews up talent. We're canceling the layoffs. Effective immediately. Murmurs erupted, but James pressed on. We're not just a business. We're a community. And we're going to act like one. The board relented, swayed by James's conviction and the leaked email he'd shared proof of their overreach. Over the next week, James rolled out sweeping changes. The layoff plan was scrapped, replaced with a retention program offering mental health support and flexible hours. KPIs were recalibrated to prioritize collaboration over competition. Claire Thompson, whose ruthless ambition had fueled the office's toxicity, was sent to leadership training, her role temporarily reassigned to a less domineering manager. Sarah Nguyen, the young coder who'd nearly broken under Claire's pressure, was given a lead role on a new project, her talent finally recognized. Even Mark Reynolds, whose cynicism had bordered on sabotage, was offered a chance to mentor new hires, channeling his experience into something constructive. But James knew policies alone wouldn't heal Pinnacle. Culture was built on trust, and trust started with connection. Inspired by Henry's quiet acts of kindness, he launched a thank you day, where employees wrote notes of gratitude to their colleagues. The results were staggering. Coders thanked designers, managers thanked interns, and, in one tearful moment, Sarah handed Henry a note thanking him for his encouragement during her darkest days. The notes were pinned to a wall in the break room, a patchwork of appreciation that softened the office's edges. For the first time, James felt Pinnacle becoming more than a machine. It was becoming a community. Henry, true to form, remained a steady presence. He still pushed his cleaning cart, still poured his homemade coffee, but now employees greeted him by name, their smiles genuine. James made a point to involve him, appointing him as an unofficial advisor to the culture committee. Henry balked at first, chuckling. I'm just a janitor, James. But James insisted. You're more than that, Henry. You're the heart of this place. Henry relented, sharing insights from his 22 years at Pinnacle stories of overlooked Workers' small kindnesses that changed lives. Lessons James wished he'd learned sooner. James's own life began to shift. The penthouse that once felt like a trophy now seemed sterile, a monument to a hollow ambition. He sold it, trading it for a modest brownstone closer to the city's pulse. He started volunteering at a community center, teaching coding to kids, who reminded him of his younger, dreamer self. He even reached out to his ex-wife, not to rekindle, but to apologize for the man he'd been distant, consumed by work. She didn't forgive him, but the call felt like a step toward the peace Henry had spoken of. Most evenings, James found himself back at Pinnacle, not in his office but on the bench outside, sharing a sandwich with Henry. Their talks about Thoreau, the Cubs, life's small joys, became his anchor. One crisp afternoon, as autumn leaves skittered across the pavement, James and Henry sat on that bench, the skyline glowing gold. Henry handed James his worn copy of Walden, its pages yellowed but loved. "Read it," Henry said, his voice soft. "It'll remind you what matters." James took the book, his fingers tracing the cover. "You've already done that, Henry," he said. "You showed me success isn't about profits or titles. It's about the people we lift up." Henry smiled, his eyes crinkling. "You're getting there, James. Keep going." As they sat, James reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He'd entered Pinnacle as Sam Wilson seeking truth, but he'd found something greater, a purpose rooted in humanity. Henry, with his mop and his coffee, had taught him that leadership wasn't about power, but about seeing people really seeing them. Pinnacle was changing, not overnight, but steadily, its people rediscovering their shared humanity. And James, once a CEO adrift, was finding his way home. This story isn't just about a CEO's awakening. It's a reminder that the greatest leaders often wear no crown. Henry Brooks, a janitor with a philosopher's soul, embodies the truth that kindness and respect are the true currencies of success. His quiet acts, pouring coffee, calming a fight, listening when no one else would, ripple through Pinnacle, proving that influence doesn't require a title. For James Carter, the lesson was humbling. A company's strength lies not in its profits, but in its people. And for us, the audience, it's a call to look closer at the colleagues we pass, the workers we overlook, the small gestures that can change a life. In a world obsessed with climbing higher, Henry's wisdom echoes. Happiness is found not in having more, but in being more for each other. That's the story, friends, and I hope it touched your heart as much as it did mine. At Legacy Stories, we're dedicated to sharing tales like this, stories of humanity, courage, and the unexpected heroes who change our world. If you loved this journey, hit that subscribe button and join our community. Share your own stories of kindness in the comments below, and let us know where you're watching from. It's amazing to see our global family grow. For more inspiring tales, tips, and tricks, stick with Legacy Stories. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. If you're feeling extra generous, tap the 3 dots near the share button and send a super thanks. Until next time, keep looking for the heart in every story.